Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and I love the question that came in. It was somebody who said he was curious about how the words ego, confidence, and humility work together in relation to credibility. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Stay tuned to hear what we're talking about. So in relation to humility, confidence, and ego in relation to credibility, one, I may actually suggest or encourage you to watch the TEDx talk focused on credibility, where I actually do talk about the 10 skill sets associated with it, and I'll cover that today. You could also take a look at the book, Credibility Nation, and that certainly has an opportunity to talk about it as well. You know, what I thought I would do is list off the 10 elements that make somebody the opposite of credible, that makes somebody dubious. And then we'll talk about those three areas. Okay, so I'm going to read through them. Someone who is dubious, I like the worst amount of dubious: selfish, manipulative, hateful, unrestrained, narcissistic, rude, inauthentic, dishonest, never wrong, know-it-alls. So for me, when I'm thinking about the words you asked, if you're talking about somebody with a big ego, potentially know-it-all, not coachable, if you're talking about somebody who isn't really humble, or maybe they are. I mean, what's interesting when I think about those words, and I think about what you're asking, is probably the one that's most questionable is what is the right amount of humility, but more importantly, what is the right amount of confidence, right? And so it's a great question. I mean, if you went into any situation, you are absolutely not confident at all, you're not exuding any amount of credibility. Got you. Understand. It's important to have confidence. Now, you shouldn't be overly confident. So overly confident is having confidence in the time where you don't know the answer. So that's where it gets interesting. If you know you've done the job, if you have, I think probably the best way to think about this is what came out of the interviews is those people who have a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks, they have confidence because they've seen this happen over and over again. They could give you an answer and they say, well, listen, I've done this 100, 1,000, X many times, and this is what I've seen in the past. This may be what happens to you. That's a level of confidence I would feel comfortable with. When somebody says there's 100% certainty that this is going to happen, when they know it may not happen, that's not confidence. As a matter of fact, that is some of the components of credibility, is having the intent and commitment to do the right thing. That is the opposite of doing the right thing. You can't be confident just because you want to make somebody feel good. You have to be confident if in your heart, under the being known, you really are a servant leader. You really do have the intent and commitment to do the right thing. You really have internal integrity. And if you have those within that framework of being both confident and humble, that fits. If you're thinking about the trustworthy component, the four elements associated with or the four skill sets associated with being trustworthy is really the being vulnerable, having external integrity, having authenticity, and being coachable. And so a lot of times when people have really large egos, they just no longer are coachable. And so the thing is, in any situation, unless you're 100% certain something's going to go a certain way, listening to other people and hearing other pieces of feedback and knowing what's going on. And so there's no right or wrong answer to any of this stuff. But when you're looking at those three words, ego, humility, confidence, we really do want, when sat on the board of a public firm, when we hired people, we wanted somebody who really had a good understanding of themselves, having a good self-worth. Now, I'm not going to say, some would argue that means they have a good ego. Having a really strong, overinflated ego, that'd be bad. Having that with a little bit of humility, Makes sense. Now, you don't want somebody who's too humble, depending on the situation, right? So that's important as well. And that confidence really comes from being able to say you've been there and done that. And so in thinking about credibility and thinking about those words in relation to credibility, what happens is every situation is going to be slightly different. And what you want to be looking at, what you want to be thinking about is this the right person that's showing up to help solve the problem that needs to be solved at this point in time, given where we are? And that will help you understand where those words fit in. In terms of credibility, the 3 words that we were asked, which is ego, humility, confidence. And the answer is, you need a little bit of each of those, but you can't have too much. So it's always very situational focused. And so what you need to do is make sure, if the person's credible, that you really understand the quality in which you know, like, and trust them. And, I meandered a little bit on this, and I'm just kind of curious what you think. Feel free to give some feedback and some thoughts and advice. I'd love to hear what you think and understand where you're coming from. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye now.